Jonathan, could you shut the doors? A true BCH flavor to our next guest. Like, like I said, he promised to build up his reputation yesterday and destroy it today. So please be kind. It's a measure of strength to be able to take effective criticism. So on that note, Yolanda Ed.
Is it good? Yeah, there you go. Or is it too loud now? Okay. Yeah, back after the rug pull, maybe after half an hour of this, you'll wish that's where we ended it. So today I'm going to be talking about incentives, about security, and about what I think we should improve in Bitcoin Cash and in Bitcoin by extension. I just want to start off by saying I like Bitcoin Cash. I hold some Bitcoin Cash, but I do think there are some things that we need to start looking into more, and that's what I'll talk about today. So when we talk about security and about incentives, what we really mean, of course, is what is the risk of a 51% attack? Like the big risk vector that we have is if one actor gets 51% hash rate, they can attack the network. There's different things they can do. They can do, for example, a double spend if they have that much hash rate, which kind of goes against the whole decentralization aspect, right? Like if someone does a double spend, that kind of disproves all we've been talking about. But the way we can profit from a double spend is pretty limited because yes, you can send funds to an exchange, you can then revert the transaction pretty much, make a small profit out of it, but it's not going to be such a big profit that it's actually worth it to try and accomplish this because you do need to get your hands on a lot of hash rate to do this, which is expensive. So double spend is the one that we all know about, but it's not the actually scary one, I think. So the scary one is, let's say an entity gets 51% hash rate, I get 51% hash rate. What I start doing right now is I start building my own chain. And in my own chain, all I do is mine empty blocks. The only thing that's in the blocks is the block reward, which is going to me. I do this for a full day. After the full day, I publish my chain, I broadcast it, we roll back a full day of transactions, and I keep mining empty blocks. Now, I would say that really hurts the network, right? Like, especially in Bitcoin, which sort of prides itself on store of value, decentralized store of value, uncensorable, everything. If this ever happens, this is a huge hit to Bitcoin. Similar for Bitcoin Cash, if all the transactions of a full day are rolled back and you cannot transact on the network indefinitely, everyone is fully censored, that's a major hit, I think, to the trust in either of these coins. Now, it's still an expensive attack to pull off, right? I think, like, I'll get to that, but it's expensive. So how do you profit from this? You can go short on Bitcoin and also on Bitcoin Cash. I got this beautiful BCH bull with a bear. You can also go short on Bitcoin Cash. Of course, on Bitcoin Cash, the amounts are pretty low for which you can go short, so it's hard to make this profitable. But on Bitcoin, there is a huge secondary market where you can go long or you can go short. The perpetual market on Bitcoin, on crypto, is about $600 billion in open interest. Most of that is Bitcoin. So you can actually take out a very big position where if the price goes down, you profit because you are short the coin, just like in BCH Bull. It's not just perpetuals, it's also futures, options, other derivatives that you can use to go short. So that's sort of the attack scenario, right? Now there's, hopefully, I think you all are thinking there's a lot of nuances to this, because first of all, you have the very small task of getting your hands on all the ASICs, like enough to attack the chain. That is quite an expensive endeavor, which I'll go into. You also have the energy cost or electricity cost to run this while you're doing the attack. The second one is actually not that big a deal. Electricity cost for this is like very low. Let's say you attack Bitcoin, The network has a 2,000 billion market cap. The energy cost to run the miners a full day is like 40, 50 million for a single day. So that's like, we can kind of ignore that for the cost of the attack just because buying up the ASICs is the hard part. There's also an alternative to buying up all the ASICs. You can like coerce, bribe, or hack miners. I won't focus on that too much unless I have more time. So we'll just focus on how do you actually get your hands on enough hash rate and can you do a short successfully. Okay, so what plays into this is the security budget issue, which I think is being talked about more recently. What the security budget issue is we pay miners in block rewards every 4 years. Of course, we have a halving, as everyone here knows, which means that the block reward that we pay is going down. Now, of course, the price can go up. So then you could say in dollar terms, it's still exactly the same. But what actually matters is the ratio. So every halving, what we do, let's say first we have 10 billion in miner revenue and a 1,000 billion market cap. If the price doubles to 2,000 billion in market cap for Bitcoin, let's say, or Bitcoin Cash, the rewards that the miners are earning, the security budget that we have, stays at 10 billion because it gets halved at a halving, right? Now, what this means, you can see the slide or the graph on the right. It means that our security budget as a percentage of the market cap keeps decreasing over time. So for every dollar in market cap, we're spending less and less to secure it. And this just keeps on going every 4 years. Now, because for a short, what is important is the cost to attack to get your hands on all the ASICs. And for that, it matters how much the miners are earning. And the other part that matters is the market cap, or like how much can you profit from a short. So what we see every 4 years, this becomes more attractive. Now, just summarizing mostly for myself, because I was making this during the night pretty much. With 51% hash rate, I think we all agree you can do a lot of damage. This damage probably means that the price will go down by a lot. If you can prove the chain is insecure, not decentralized, price goes down. You can profit from that with a short, and this is becoming more attractive over time due to the halvings, due to security budget decreasing. Now, all of you are hopefully thinking fees, right? Because block reward goes down, as Callisti was saying. In 20 years, we'll have very high volume or no volume. The thinking is we can replace this security budget, we can replace the block rewards with fees. In Bitcoin, not practical. I think we all kind of agree it doesn't work. But in BCH, we can scale enough to actually do lots of transactions. So I tried to run the math on it. We currently have 0.4 cents per transaction as an average. I think long term, we kind of want 1 cent per transaction on average to stay sort of easy to use, right? If we assume a very happy world in which Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash swap in market cap, everyone here will be very happy, I think. What then happens at the next halving to make up for the decrease in block rewards is that we would need an additional 4.1 billion transactions on Bitcoin Cash per day, which I think currently we're at 30,000-ish. I don't know, Callisti probably knows better. Bitcoin itself is at about 300,000. So I'm very optimistic on the future, but I think 4.1 billion is like 5 orders of magnitude increase. I think it's a bit like hand waving the issue away, right? It's like, yes, we will have global adoption and then this works. Would be nice if we get there, but I think it's kind of a flimsy future to like build your security on. Of course, also you can play with the numbers, by the way. So if we have 1 cent per transaction, it's less than 4.1 billion. But to add some context, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, JCB, Diners, and UnionPay all combined do about 2 billion transactions per day. So saying that we do 4.1, I find that sort of optimistic, let's say. Okay, so then what matters for this attack is how much does it cost you to get your hands on the hash rate? So how many ASICs do we need to buy? Where do we buy them from? How do we get them? Now, because Bitcoin mining has gotten so big, there are lots of public companies who do this. They're listed on the stock exchanges. They have a market cap, which really helps for calculations. So we have Marathon Digital Mining. They're the biggest miners, I believe. They have 6% of the hash rate, and their market cap is actually 5.5 billion. Now you would say, okay, easy, we can do 5.5 billion for 6% of hash rate. 100% of the hash rate is roughly 100 billion. Very easy calculation. Except Marathon's market cap of 5.5 billion, they hold 5 billion in Bitcoin. So if we adjust for it, because like every time the Bitcoin price moves up or down, you see their market cap going up or down, and then you see like 500 million added for their mining operations, pretty much. So the actual market cap of their mining operations, not just them as a proxy for the Bitcoin price, is about 500 million. If we then do the math, that means 100% of ASICs would cost 8.3 billion. Very low. That said, we can also look at other miners. Riot is big, CleanSpark is big, Hut 8 is big. Not all of these have Bitcoin on their balance sheet, so for some it's even simpler to do this comparison, and you get different cost sort of estimates. I added in Hut 8 because for them the estimate's actually a bit higher than the rest. I tried to not be too biased. So for most estimates, it's like 10 to 40 billion to buy up 100% of the ASICs. There will probably be some premium, right, if you buy all of them up, but all of these are just public companies. So if you can offer them like 50% over their current price, like most investors will be quite happy. But we also checked it, or I also checked it with just ASICs. So if you were to buy up the best ASIC on the market today, me as an individual, I would pay a certain price. I just multiplied that to get like the necessary hash rate. It would cost you $18 billion. It's a very rough estimate, of course, because you need a place to host them, you need to ship them, all kinds of stuff. But also on the other hand, if you want to buy that many ASICs, you'll get a discount. Which kind of brings me to my next point. Because yes, security budget is already challenging, but we also have centralization over time in these miners. So I was showing the big miners, Marathon, Hut 8, Riot, whatever. Hut 8 actually recently merged with US Bitcoin. And the reason they do these mergers is that they have economies of scale. The bigger the miners get, the lower their costs are for every mined Bitcoin. So that's not just me saying it, it's like lots of research saying it, but also they very proudly announce it in all of their public statements. So when they were talking about this merger, they were saying, okay, this is great because it reduces our administrative expenses per Bitcoin, and we can get even better discount deals on buying the ASICs. We have cheaper capital. It's like all kinds of reasons that they can produce Bitcoin more cheaply than just a small miner. Now, the issue with this is that this just keeps worsening over time, right? Because the big miners make more profit, they can reinvest more. And we've kind of already been seeing this. And I don't mean like mining pools. Those are obviously also centralizing. But just the big miners themselves, they keep getting bigger. If you look like 5 years back, it was far more spread out than it is now. We didn't have like Marathon with 6% all by themselves. And just a few US Bitcoin miners adding up to like 20% or something. Now, why this is risky, why this is bad for the attack that I was talking about, is the fewer entities that you need to talk to buy up or bribe or coerce or something, the easier this gets, right? Instead of going out to all these different miners, you have like a few central ones that you can talk to, you can buy them out. And this also keeps getting easier over time. So we have like 2 different vectors in which this is getting easier over time. It's actually a third one, if I get to it. But what this actually comes down to is that the incentives are just very messed up. Like the incentive for miners is to keep getting bigger. Their incentive is to centralize. It's the opposite of what we want as users, as holders, because we want a decentralized network, right? But we also have a sort of clash of incentives in another way, because a miner doesn't necessarily care about Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. They care about the income stream that it gives them. They don't need to hold the coin. They just want to, mine the coin, sell it for USD, pay their suppliers, and hopefully get a small profit. So they're not that incentivized into the system. They just want to extract as much as possible for as long as possible. And it's us paying for it in inflation, in fees. Like you have to pay in some way for them to be able to mine. So just summarizing the problem, you can mine empty blocks, you can short, because if you mine empty blocks, if you roll back the chain, it's going to hurt the price immensely. It's sort of disproving the entire basis of crypto, of Bitcoin Cash, of Bitcoin. We can approximate the cost by looking at public miners. We can approximate how much you can make from this by looking at the market cap, by looking at the financialization, like the derivatives, the shorts, all that kind of stuff. At the same time, it's becoming increasingly attractive because the security ratio is decreasing and we have the centralization over time. Now, like, in case I haven't made it clear enough, I am very concerned about this problem. I have been for quite a while. I was in Bitcoin fairly early on. The reason I'm no longer holding that much in Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash is actually this. I just don't believe in the long-term future as long as we have this proof of work. If you can attack a coin for, say, 50 billion as a higher estimate, even go higher than that, and you can make way more than that from a short, there are many parties that will want to do so at some time. It could be investors, it could be miners themselves. They don't make that much profit. There's just a few of them. They can decide, okay, let's collaborate, burn the value of our ASICs because we have this one-time payoff of like tens or hundreds of billions by doing this. So people have been thinking about solutions, and here are a few that I've come up with, or no, not that I've come up with actually. The thing is, please keep the solutions separate from the problem. I don't want to say these are the perfect solutions. It's just the ones that I think kind of make sense. But I also think the problem is super important, and we should focus on whether we think this is a real problem, and then hopefully we can agree to start thinking about solutions. Anyway, a tail emission. It's been talked about a lot in Bitcoin, or recently has been getting talked about. I think we all know the idea. Instead of a decreasing security budget because of the halvings, we just keep the block rewards as they are now. What that means is the security budget stays roughly equal, even without fees. We don't have to think about it. But there are some downsides, of course, like you get rid of the fixed supply, which we probably all quite like. It makes it less attractive, right, as an investment or as a store of value, because now you're getting inflated away constantly. The other issue is it doesn't actually solve the issue, because we still have this attack factor of trying to get 51% hash rate and going short. It's just the question, how expensive do you make it? And we also have not solved the centralization over time. So it's not really a true solution. We can also increase adoption. Obviously, good idea to do anyway, right? Like, we want to see more adoption. But yeah, for me, the numbers just don't really add up yet. And also, the higher the market cap gets in whatever fantasy scenario we do, the more transactions we actually need. So 4.1 is already 4.1 billion, already a pretty high count of transactions, but the number could be far higher that we would need. So I think that can sort of help with the problem, but it doesn't solve it. So what I am proposing, and I'll hide behind these chairs, is to consider moving to proof of stake. Because, exactly, I've got a pointer. Because by doing so, proof of stake has never, that I know of, successfully been 51% attacked. In proof of work, we have quite some examples of a successful 51% attack. Why does it not happen in proof of stake? Because, first of all, it's incredibly expensive. Most of the estimates that we've looked into for Bitcoin, it's 50 billion is a pretty high estimate, but let's say even 100 billion to attack it. If you want to buy up half of all outstanding Bitcoin, even half of all outstanding Bitcoin Cash, it's very expensive. In the case of Bitcoin, the low estimate is half of the current price, $1 trillion. $1 trillion. Of course, once you start buying it up, the price goes up even more, right? So getting your hands on 51% is very expensive to do, makes it very hard to do. But also, once you've bought up 51%, if you do an attack, the person you hurt is yourself. Unlike with hash rate, where you don't need to be invested in the network, you just need to have this hash rate outside of the network. In proof of stake, you need to be invested in the network. Now, I think many of you will probably agree that it still does have centralization and that there are many downsides to proof of stake, but the big will keep getting bigger. It's hard for small players to stake. You have to lock up funds, and most people cannot afford to lock up their funds. You just get your income and you spend it again. So it has many issues. So what I'm proposing is a modified version of proof of stake. And I'll walk through my reasoning, and then people can shout at what they sort of recognize this as. I would propose that we remove fees and we remove inflation, because they are the core of the problem of centralization. So if you have proof of work or proof of stake, as long as you have rewards, there will be people fighting over the rewards, and the big will always be able to get more rewards than the small ones. Just keep that going over time, and it's centralization all the way down, constantly, every year again. If you don't have fees, if you don't have inflation, there is no reward going to the big players. They are not getting bigger, at least not in the network itself, because there's nothing being paid out to them. Right now, we incentivize centralization in the network, in the consensus, And by doing this, by removing fees and inflation, we remove that incentive. Now, I think we would all, like, if we have a proof of stake coin and we're not getting paid to stake, no one does it, right? Because I'm not locking up my funds like you do it, right? I want security, but I don't want to be the one that cannot access my money or takes some sort of risk. So the question becomes, who would stake? Now, what if we could make it so that you don't have to lock up your funds? You can just, in your wallet, you can choose who you want to stake with. So instead of needing to set up your own node, instead of locking your funds, just check in your wallet like, okay, what are some smaller stakers? Cool, I'll stake with them. I'll delegate with them. You don't actually have to make it so that the funds leave your wallet. You can just make it so that you vote for a specific validator, for a staker, without ever giving up control of your coins. But then the question is, who runs the nodes, right? Because yes, I'll delegate to someone, but I don't want to run a node. It's going to cost me money. So just a quick show of hands. Are there people here that run nodes in any crypto whatsoever? Okay, and can you put down your hand if you do this only because you're a miner? Okay, that's actually quite some hands still, which makes sense to me. Like, we also run a node on Nano, on Bitcoin, on Litecoin. We run a bunch of nodes because we're a merchant on all of those networks, and we need to have direct access to the network. I assume for Selene, you run a node, right? Because you want direct access to the network. So even without any reward paid out to nodes, we have plenty of nodes because people just need to run a node to access the network for their business. There's also probably individuals who run a node just because they like the network or because you hold a lot of the coin. As long as we have sufficient people running nodes, there's a lot of choice for you, even if you don't want to run your own node, to decide who you want to stake with or who you vote for in this system. And now, let's say you hold 10,000 BCH, but you don't want to run your own node, and you can choose who you want to stake with. Are you going to stake with an entity that already has 10% of the total voting weight or staking power, whatever you want to call it? No, right? Because you want the network to be decentralized, because that's what gives it value. You hold BCH, so you want the network to remain valuable. What you'll do is you'll stake with a small staker, a small node, so that the network becomes more decentralized. So I think if you have a system like this, it is more secure because it is harder to attack. It's actually pretty impossible to attack. It's harder to profit from an attack, very importantly, so you remove the incentive. At the same time, it helps decentralize the network because instead of decentralization over time, we have every single holder with an incentive to decentralize the network, and they can actually help do so in a very simple way. And then there are, of course, other upsides, because if you don't have inflation, if you don't have fees, your coin becomes even more attractive, right? Like, do you want to hold a coin with 2% inflation or with 0% inflation, all things kept even? Do you want to pay 1 cent in fees, which is barely anything, but it adds up at scale? Or do you want to have 0 fees? So I think by doing this, you actually make your coin more attractive, more secure, more decentralized, and more attractive. Yeah, so just summarizing for myself, and then I'll take questions. I think the incentives that we have now are very misaligned, and I think there's an increasingly big incentive to attack the coin. I think it's possible to attack the coin. I think you can profit from attacking the coin, both BCH and Bitcoin. I think the key issue is that proof of work is risky and increasingly so, and I think that we need to either massively increase adoption, we need to do that anyway, or we need to consider moving to proof of stake. The exact version, I'm not technical, but I think a version like I just talked about makes the most sense. But obviously we need to think about what actually would work for us. So with that said, I think that's my last slide. Yeah, I didn't want to mention my name again. So thank you for listening.
All right, here we go. We've got some very enthusiastic hands here.
So what I want to say is there are a lot of coins that are using proof of stake, whereas there are a lot of coins with tail emission. Obviously this wasn't right so far as I understand. But we currently have only one coin which is original Satoshi design. And if it was supposed to fail, we should let it fail on its merits. That's it. So I have nothing against trying to experiment with the new things, but I don't think it should be done on Bitcoin Cash.
Okay.
That's it.
I think that's fair, to be honest. To be honest, for me, it doesn't matter too much if it's Bitcoin Cash or any other coin. I would love it just if Bitcoin, for example, improved itself, just because I think that's the easiest way we get to global adoption. It's a far bigger battle for any unknown coin to get there. But yeah, I kind of agree with you that it will be hard, right? Like many people like the way it is now and they want to let the experimenting to other chains. That like can only agree.
I want to thank you for the talk. I think it's very well stated, and it's considerations that are worth thinking about. I really think it's good. I just wanted to push back a little bit on one of the things you seem to sort of allude to, the fact that miners are disincentivized from the network, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it would depend if they have alternatives on what else they can mine on with that same hardware. With Bitcoin, let's say, if they end up destroying the network, they're sitting on a huge pile of very expensive, useless hardware.
Yeah.
So in some sense, you could consider them actually aligned with the interests of the coin. I mean, they become much more successful if the coin succeeds because their hardware is tied directly to that coin's algorithm, you know, like SHA-256D. So, I mean, you know, that's also a consideration. Like, it's not, I mean, you maybe made the impression that they're completely just, you know, they're just going to extract value from the network and run away, whereas they're actually, like, physically invested. They bought buildings, they have employees, they have hardware that can become useless overnight. So, I mean, I think that's probably in their minds, too. I mean, that's part of their incentives, you know, where they wouldn't just collude to attack a coin unless it was maybe a competing algorithm of the same algorithm, and they could destroy that.
Right, yeah.
But,
So-
I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, so I
thoughts on
largely
that?
agree. I think the payoff needs to be big enough for them to have it be worth it, right? So if we look at these public miners, Marathon Digital Holdings, whatever they're called, like their market cap is 5 billion. In that 5 billion is contained the value of their ASICs. It's like it contains the future earnings that people expect them to have. If they can choose between keep mining Bitcoin and get 100 million in profits every year, most of them are actually not that profitable because they have to reinvest most again. So let's say they make 100 million a year, or they can completely burn the value of all their existing assets, but they have a one-time payout of 10 billion or 20 billion because of this short. Then in that case, I wouldn't care. Like I will gladly burn down my house if you pay me 2 million, let's say. If you do this, you mean, as an attacker.
You're going to get found and you're going to get killed.
I don't think we should build our security on the assumption.
So
Yeah, true.
I would like to present a scenario for his question, in which case it is not equivalent to burning down the house. And that is basically proof of work, hash rate works on the more efficient semiconductor you get. And right now, the United States government is spending a lot of money to keep the semiconductor dominance under the US influence. Their aim is they're not thinking about proof of work or Bitcoin, they're thinking about AI, and they don't want the hostile nations to get access to AI. For this, they're willing to go to war with China over Taiwan so that they don't get access to that semiconductor. I believe what's going to happen in the future is that the largest hash rate on any proof of work chain will be under direct influence of US government. In the sense, the US government will control through licensing which mining companies can get access to the most energy efficient semiconductors. When that happens, what's going to be is that not that they're going to burn down the chain, whether it's BTC, BCH, or any proof of work chain, but rather they're going to do something which they already did in the last 3 years, and that is they just confiscated hundreds of billions of dollars belonging to a world leader which they did not like. They can do the same thing. Some country has a lot of money, or some entity has a lot of money and goes against the US government, and they are going to actually ask you to freeze that account, and that's a hard fork of the chain, but all the hash rate will go into that chain, the stronger chain. And if needed, to continuously attack and 51% reorg the non-dominant chain. So they will destroy the non-dominant chain, and they will continue with the dominant chain where most people are fine because their chain, their account and everything still works. It's just that few people are censored, or, everybody gets the message to not mess with the US government.
Yeah.
So that's a scenario in which it is financially completely valid for everybody who has this mining equipment to continually ban, censor, do all sorts of negative things on the activity, not burn down the chain, but still remain extremely profitable.
Okay, I think, yeah, it can make sense, that scenario, but I also think that would also kind of like, if we come to a sort of public status where it's known that one government fully controls the chain, then I think that also pretty much kills Bitcoin, right? Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I think I mostly agree with you. I think that's like another way in which this can go wrong. Yeah.
So in the BTC community, there is a sentiment of there's like the product like the BitX, it's consumer grade mining hardware. There's like the whole mining for heat idea. I used to do that myself on an S9. So there's some non-monetary value that can be extracted from mining. I was using it to heat my room for a while, right? And it would offset my heating costs in the winter. It's cold in Michigan. So I'm just wondering about your thoughts on that. Do you think that in aggregate, consumer grade mining, especially as it becomes more efficient, can help mitigate these kind of issues?
I would like to think so, but I think not so much, to be honest, mostly because the bigger cost than just the energy cost is actually purchasing the ASICs. So if you run it in the winter to offset your heating cost, that's great, you know. But if you probably pay for your electricity in the summer, and it's like way more than that the big miners pay. So if you have to turn it off in summer because you're like, it's not profitable for me now with this electricity cost because the miners have like 4 cents per kilowatt hour. I don't think any of us can match that pretty much. If you have to turn it off in summer and it's only profitable in winter, you're not going to recoup the investment on the ASICs. Like in almost every ASIC that, like I've looked at 5, to be fair, you need to mine 24/7 with pretty low costs to be able to make it profitable. So turning it off for half the year, then you're just not profitable. You can still do it, of course. It's just more of a charity thing, which I don't think will scale enough to get to where we need.
Hi, Milan. Thank you so
Hey.
much for an interesting talk. It was very, very good. Yeah, I've got a couple of points, I guess, to rebuke or like some assumptions that are made that I think are flawed. And the one is to like to make the most money or to get this money, you're assuming.
Double mic.
Yeah, you're you're assuming the price of Bitcoin is very high. But to be able to get hold of that mining equipment, you have to go and start purchasing it aggressively. That's not going to happen, and also logistically, like get hold of it or move it or ship it. That's going to be incredibly difficult to keep on the lowdown. So as soon as like that happens, like, hey, look, like basically someone's going out and buying out all of these multi-billion-pound companies and getting hold of their miners, the signal's already going to be there, like something's going on here. And the price of Bitcoin will then naturally drop. And so the shorting potential with that automatically drops. Yeah. And so I think like this is and I think that whole logistical element is a sort of a little bit hand-waved here. Like the maths makes sense, but the logistics of that, and also, you know, trying to buy all of the miners at a certain point, you know, it's like supply and demand. The more you buy, the higher the price goes up, and at a certain point, it will become exponential. Like it will, because. So I see an issue there.
So,
sorry, and
okay.
yeah. So that was my. Yeah, that was my first point. Maybe, sorry, if you could answer that.
So I think you can start buying up miners. You can start, like, let's say the people behind Marathon Holding want to do this. They already have a pretty big miner. They can just keep buying more and more. And it makes sense, right? We see these mergers happening. So, like, what's not to say it's already happening? These miners, there's just a few big miners, to be honest, that keep getting bigger. It could already be their plan to do this. It's just a sort of long con that they're doing. If you want to do it in a short term, and you start buying up that many ASICs, and you think the price will decrease, you can also just open the short as soon as you start buying up, right? Because then, okay, great, you're buying up these miners, price goes down, I can bid even more for these ASICs. So I do think like it is hand wavy, I agree, to just say, yes, you can buy up all of these miners. But also they're public companies. Like if you make a tender offer for many of these, like it's not that hard. Yes, we can assume some premium on it, but like the worst part actually is, to me, for the miners themselves, this can start to make sense because as their revenue, as their profit decreases, what do they want to do? They just want to, you know, make a lot of money. So for them, it might actually make sense to just perform this attack themselves.
So I think, yeah, that argument there, I can shoot that exact back. So one of the solutions that's proposed is to go to proof of stake. And the great thing about proof of work is it's a continuous tug of war. So if you get 51%, that's not static. So someone else can basically buy some more miners or turn on their miners that have been turned off and increase on that. And the thing is with proof of stake is once someone has that 51%, then it's over, right? They have that power and you can't buy more nano unless they sell it. And so you're talking about the long con. Maybe they're already doing that. Maybe that would already happen with proof of stake. Maybe there's already, in all of the coins that are using proof of stake, using, for example, Nano, because of the unfair distribution, which I would also see as a critical element of sound money for the world, is the fair distribution, which proof of stake doesn't offer. But you have proof of stake. Maybe that is already happened. The CIA or whichever free-lending agency has already got the majority stake. So at a certain point, because they bought that for peanuts, because Nano price is, of course, peanuts, right? And then at a certain point, if by all God, something happens and you do an amazing job and Nano becomes this amazing thing, or any other proof of stake money, then they can launch that attack because it's part of the long game. So how would you counter that? How would you, because that argument you're using against proof of work can be used exactly against proof of stake.
Right. So I would say that is a very long con, of course, that they're playing. So let's say you wanted to buy up 51% of Nano early on. You would have probably already increased the price a fair bit, but let's say you kept it relatively low, right? You bought it up over time. Now, Nano has the market cap of Bitcoin, 2,000 billion, whatever. And they decide this is the time we're going to attack. First of all, they are burning down about $1 trillion in value because they are the biggest entity on the network. They hold most of their value in the network. So we first of all have to assume that they are an actor who does not care about profit, which I think is already a stronger defense than having actors that want to make a profit able to attack your chain. So
what's the enemy of P2P currency?
Governments, I assume.
Governments, and who else?
Banks.
Right, and what sort of a market cap is 2 trillion to them? In terms of profit, to burn that sort of, the money that would have cost to have bought Nano, which would have been pennies, even if you're talking about millions, but to save that ecosystem that they have. How much value is in the entire cash market and fiat
But you're
market?
making very odd assumptions here, I think, because if you're willing to spend 1 trillion to attack a chain, you can easily do that with proof of work now. Like most of the calculations we do show more like 50 billion. If you are willing to burn 1 trillion to attack, proof of work is still weaker. It's still easier to get enough ASICs to attack proof of work than it is proof of stake. Also, I think it's a big assumption to think they managed to buy 51% in every proof of stake network early on. And I also want to add for Bitcoin Cash, you could have your fair distribution and have proof of stake, right? Let's say Bitcoin Cash switches to proof of stake now. We don't have to redo distribution. Distribution has happened. So if you like the distribution, you can just say, cool, we move to proof of stake now. So unless you also think that they bought 51% of all Bitcoin Cash, thinking maybe at some point they go to proof of stake and then I can attack, which I think is like, we're getting into very, very long cons here,
Yes.
I think.
We're going to have to wrap this up and move on, but just a couple of final points I want to make. Firstly, I think it's great to have these kind of discussions here, and I also think it's in a sense ironic because in the BCH world, we actually don't have much clout in the mining space as a result of our lower hash rate. Mining is not well represented here and stuff. And ironically, it is the BCH community who are hashing this out, trying to get to the bottom of it. And as it happens every time, the BTC guys will wake up and will already be shipping the solutions.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that's important. We have those discussions. I mean, I think from the BCH community, a lot of the thinking is it's just drive the adoption or go to zero. And I think people do have that mentality in there. They're okay with that. And one other final thing I want to throw in, you might want to comment on, is the idea that with quantum coming in, one of the proposals on the BTC side is for a thing called Hourglass, which would basically drip feed the unsecure quantum coins in by allowing miners to only grab one block of quantum unsecured coins over, per unit time. So that essentially gives you a fresh batch of emission without suffering the inflation and without having a huge shock on the market as an immediate result. So maybe that buys more time, than we would expect to have, if there's, let's say, 2 to 3 million unsecured coins.
I think it was 6 million when someone looked it up yesterday. Yeah. So I think two things on it. So first of all, BCH hashing this out instead of BTC, I think is quite typical, right? But I also think what we are talking about here is getting massive adoption, is what does it take to get BCH to that global adoption that we want to see. And then we also have to think into the future, because if we want to get to massive adoption, we have to be secure. So I think also for BCH, despite this being a bigger issue for BTC, this is key to me anyway. And then the quantum emission schedule, to me that's sort of the same as a till emission, right? Except instead of freshly minted coins, you just do it with like coins we assume lost. But it still comes down to the same thing, because those coins are assumed lost right now. If you let those re-enter the circulation, you just have the same inflation that you would have with a till emission. So I would say yes, it's sort of a solution, but it comes with the same downsides as till emission to me.
At least in the short term, yes. Anyway, everyone can hash this out on Twitter afterwards. I'm sure it'll be a popular topic. Hands together for Milan.
Thank you.
All right, all right. Now we'll talk about the other solution, which is adoption. So, gentlemen, if you want to come on up. Let Lisa just work with the clicker. Okay. Just click on. Okay. All right, everyone. This is I believe the last session of the day, and today we're going to be talking about, like I said, the other hopeful solution for BCH, rather than having to change its security model, would be adoption. And we're going to be talking about social impact and adoption. I have my panelists up here. I have a little bit of a opening introduction that I want to do before I introduce the panelists. I'm actually going to be joining you guys sitting down, so if you don't mind scooting down one, I appreciate that. But filled in a room with entrepreneurs, in kind of the basis of the BCH BLISS concept and the conference of bringing builders together with investors and community to build businesses. Me as an entrepreneur wanted to share kind of a message that I think I've really based all my companies in the way we market, in the way we speak to customers, and the way we speak to users to win over hearts and minds. So this is something that I found about over 10 years ago, 15 years ago, how to communicate marketing. It was by a gentleman, Simon Sinek. You guys have probably seen him out there. He did a TED Talk probably 15 years ago. And just saying the way we speak to people, we should tell people why we do things, not how we do things. And I'll go into some examples of that. But essentially, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I want that to kind of sink in. And if anyone wants to talk to me afterwards or offsite just about building businesses and marketing and sustainability, in growing users, it's something I love to talk about, and something I've been investing heavily in myself for my companies. So I want to talk about how to capture whys of, obviously, like Bitcoin Cash has a why, right? And it may be different in a decentralized ecosystem to everyone, but also your specific companies may have different whys. So this is just an example of big companies in America today, how they speak to people, and they don't necessarily explain how their products work, but they explain why they do it. So like, for example, Tesla, to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy, doesn't tell you how a car works, doesn't tell you about products and features and what the car does, but it's simple messaging of why the company exists and why anybody should care. And furthermore, there's several other examples. Apple, to challenge the status quo and to think differently. Again, nothing about how their new products and features work, just simply why they exist and the type of people that they are trying to attract. Again, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And this was an exercise we did just towards BLISS, and it was a very fun exercise I did with my co-founders of BLISS here, Jeremy and Jonathan. We really tried to come up with why people should come to BLISS. Let me go here. And this video was kind of an inspiration of that, but essentially our mission here is to inspire innovation and curiosity in Bitcoin Cash for further development to attract users. So it's something I wanted to share as we're jumping on the topic of creating more users and businesses in this room that are looking to seed investment or grow profits. I thought this was useful marketing or useful messaging that I found useful in my career.
What's BCH BLISS?
But without further ado, we're going to hop into our panelists, and we're going to go over some topics to do with adoption. And I'll go ahead and I'm going to give them all the first question. And with that first question, they can also introduce themselves as they are all mic'd up. So we'll start at the far left with Saqib. And Saqib, the first question is, in your opinion, how is BCH doing with adoption? And if you could answer that question with your introduction bio.
Thank you so much. And firstly, it's an honor and privilege to be presenting with you all today. It's my second time here at BLISS. And hopefully, I'm hoping next year I'll be on the podium presenting the project that I've been working on. So as a background, it's really hard for me to define myself because I have so many different things going on. But if anybody ever had to remember me, I would love it. It's not about BCH, but I'm an pediatric surgeon. I've worked on 5 continents as a surgeon in disaster zones and other areas, and I'm currently working at a charity in Cambodia working with impoverished children and operating on them for free. On my side job, I work with General Protocols for the last 3 years, building and developing their products and being the kind of push behind BCH Bull and the marketing and the promotion and the UI and the development. And I'm extremely proud that BCH Bull is kind of a flagship product for BCH. And the last one, which is the most important one in relation to the question, is that I've developed a journal which is targeting the massively profitable publishing industry, which is gatekeeping medical research. And to answer the question of how BCH is doing in terms of adoption, my technical answer is the first thing when I was building the journal was I needed to build a system that allows the journal to integrate with Bitcoin Cash and payments. And I was quoted by a developer $20,000 to allow my journal on my platform to accept Bitcoin Cash payments. This was back in 2021. And I was like, well, that's wild. And then I discovered Prompt Cash. And Prompt Cash was just it was already there, completely easy, got it integrated within a second, and that was amazing. And so having that tool allowed me to just adopt Bitcoin Cash as a payment network instantly. And so that was amazing. And so the next question is, how do I get adoption from my users? And that is becoming a bit of a challenge. So the journal is becoming extremely successful. It's getting adoption. We've got 400 users. We've got multiple peer reviewers. I won't talk about the model, but I'm onboarding Bitcoin Cash to places all over the world. So in the last 3 months, we've sent Bitcoin Cash to Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Tanzania, Malawi, Nepal, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Italy. These are all new Bitcoin Cash users. And they know nothing. They know nothing about crypto, and they don't really care about the technology and the whole thing. They just wanted to earn via the journal. And so they're very educated, very smart people, surgeons, medics. But I think the vast majority, when I've sent them crypto, this is what I'll challenge a little bit on Callisti and some of the current wallets, is that they've not all of them, but the vast majority of them have lost their crypto because they didn't understand the seed phrase, they didn't understand how to back it up, they didn't understand the technology behind it. And so one of the challenges I'm having is recommending a wallet that actually allows a no-coiner to understand very easily what they're getting and how to protect it in a very simple, easy way.
So we'll do a grading. 1 out of 10, how good is BCH doing on adoption?
In my network,
global adoption, and 1 being nobody uses.
I can only talk about the medical profession, and I would say it's 1, because my real network knows nothing about crypto. And when I mention Bitcoin Cash, they all just think Bitcoin and scam and what is this? Every single person. So I would say Bitcoin Cash in my network of the world is 1.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you, Saqib. The next gentleman here you may recognize from formerly Twitter X, Mr. Sally Mayweather, Sal the Agorist. You want to give your introduction and give your summary of how you think BCH is doing with adoption.
Sure. So my name is Sal Mayweather. You guys may follow me on Twitter, Sal the Agorist. Thank you. I think it's done pretty well in retail adoption. I mean, especially like relative to other coins, that's always been our strength, right? It was P2P Cash, and I think because we sort of carried the Bitcoin name, whenever a company or an exchange accepts crypto, we're always one of the ones in there, and that's always been our strong point. I think we have sort of fallen off a little bit. Like we've probably went from like I'm talking like relative to other cryptos. I would say like adoption was probably at a 9, but maybe now we're at like a 7.5 or an 8. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about some different ways to improve that.
Very nice, very nice. Elliot, I know you had a speech earlier, but if you want to jump in and talk more about yourself or tell us how BCH is doing with adoption.
Yeah, so I'm going to chime in there with what Sal's saying. So if you're looking at it from other crypto point of view, then BCH, I think is still very high. I think it's one of, 8, 9, 10 when compared to other cryptos. But I think it's obvious to say if anyone's, actually out there in the real world, the adoption of any crypto is 0.00001. Like there's 8 billion people to adopt,
It's
basically.
Still
It's still something. So, thinking of what Kalisti said, the Satoshi quote, that, we'll leave in 20 years, we'll have loads of transactions or none. And I think when we look at that and we look at, all the steam that was happening with Bitcoin up until the split, and the usage and the growing, we haven't seen that exponential growth. We had the split and the fork, and since then, Bitcoin Cash has done really good in certain areas. In the Philippines right now, we're seeing great adoption. But when looking at a global part, when people say like, hey, it's not early anymore, it's really late. No, it's not true at all. We're right at the very start. We haven't even begun this journey yet.
1 out of 10.
1.
1, okay. All right, so
And
we'll
it still is still in the pole position from all cryptos at 1.
So my next question is, to get from wherever you guys started, we'll go back to Sakib. If we're at a 1, especially in your industry, how do we? My question was, what is the largest challenges BCH faces with adoption? Essentially, how to grow that up from your perception in the medical field. What challenges does it face? And you kind of hit on a little bit, but if you want to dig deeper into that.
I think the key is the utility and the problems that it solves, and that's the challenge. That it's not easy to find a niche that Bitcoin Cash specifically can resolve. But if you've got a problem that is solved by the currency and the properties of that currency, and then you've got enough user base who need that problem solving, and it, in my opinion, has to be relatively a niche user base. When they onboard into it and understand the property and use it and have a microeconomy of using that, that's how it sustains itself. And then as that small microeconomy develops and more people onboard into that niche, I think that's the way it's going to get taken. Because we can have retail and we can have all these other issues, but I just can't see how that is going to actually network effect enough to be sustainable unless it has the properties that the people need.
Well, you mentioned one issue. A lot of the people that are getting paid in BCH are losing their keys too.
Right.
Can you elaborate more on that and how that's obviously a challenge and may turn them off to pay me in something else that I won't lose?
Yeah, it is a challenge because it's very frustrating. Like just one of my board members just a couple of weeks ago said, "Which wallet did I use?" And I couldn't remember. I can't remember how I onboarded him at the time. And so they've changed their phone or they haven't maintained what they've got. And so you think, well, the problem is I want obviously them to adopt the currency and then start using it. But I need them to understand the technology a little bit for them to embrace it. They have to have some baseline knowledge. And so should I pay them? I can't pay. The problem, well, it's not a problem. It's a blessing that I can't use. And this is the beauty of the product that I have. I can't use any other payment system. I can only use Bitcoin Cash with the exception of perhaps Litecoin or any other crypto that's trying to be a payment network. But like Elliot just said, BCH is the #1 payment network, crypto-oriented service, right? So I can't choose anything else. So I'm hampered and blessed by the fact that I have to use BCH to pay my reviewers, and I have to accept BCH to get payments back in. So what I need is a better onboarding system, and it's been a frustration for me that I don't have a go-to wallet. I've been changing the wallet I've been recommending people to go to, and I don't have a very clear pathway to teach them how to use it in a simple way that it doesn't waste their time, and it gives them the very basic essentials in a very, very quick way that I'm confident that they're secure in it. So I would love to see that.
So we have some more questions later about wallets, and we'll dig
Sure.
deeper into that. and a lot of representation in the room right now. But we'll go to Sal next. Sal, you said we were at a 9, went down to a 7. How do you see BCH climbing itself back up to that 9 level or even a 10?
So like the standard answer that I would give a room full of like newbies is to just use it. It's P2P cash. I started a company called 3D Printer Go Burr because I thought that the idea was it's P2P cash, right? And some people don't want politicians to know that they're buying 3D printers. So here's a great solution and way to use and promote cryptocurrency. And it was wonderful. We did a ton of sales in crypto, and I thought that was great. But you guys know all that, so that's like not even a surprise to this audience. But what I think this audience should know, so like more people who are more have more expertise in crypto, is privacy, guys. We need privacy desperately on the Bitcoin Cash chain, especially now. We've seen like I guess it started with Ross, but it's really the war on crypto has really ramped up under Joe Biden. We've seen the SEC weaponized against every major crypto institution. Roger Ver has been persecuted by the political class. Tons of every major figurehead from all the different tribes in crypto have been persecuted. So privacy is no longer optional, right? And we should have known this because the Austrian economists always told us about fungibility. And I think a lot of us sort of took that for granted. We thought, we have pseudonymity, which is, it's pretty good. But it's not good enough anymore. And I think that if we can somehow, I'm not the guy to do it. I'm not the smarter. I'm one of the dumber people in this room. A lot of the technical talk goes right over my head. But I'm sure a lot of you out there can probably figure this out. Like, we need privacy, guys. So that's, I think, a key to getting adoption in this age of persecution and the war on crypto.
And from your perspective, that will get us back up to a 9, to a 10?
I think it'll help a lot. But again, the key is we have to use it. Like we have a business out there, accept Bitcoin Cash, make it simple. We have to, and we have to compete with other cryptocurrencies too. And I think that's where privacy comes in. So.
Yeah, I won't mention who, but we were speaking to a developer yesterday and kind of the excitement with privacy technology with the VM limits upgrade tomorrow. And I found one of the responses to not be unusual, but like probably what you don't want to hear is that, a fear of being the one to champion that because of the persecution. So curious to see how the community will respond in general to having the ability to privacy tool, but also stay clear of the status class.
The SEC.
That may not like it, yeah. So thank you for that. We'll go to Elliot next. Elliot, we are at a 1 right now, but I think you kind of jumble this in with the rest of crypto.
Yeah.
So maybe from the perspective of crypto, we're doing better, but so maybe it's generally crypto ahead of BCH. How do we get at least to a 2 or 3 here?
Yeah, so how do we get this? I mean, for me, the 2 or the 3 is, of course, a nice stepping stone. How do we get it to a 10? I imagine that when it does happen, it's going to be explosive, and in a couple of years, it will go from the 1, the 2 to mass adoption. And it's like what I was presenting about. I think, like the merchant adoption that's going on in Townsville or BCH City and in Tacloban City in Philippines. This is really important, and I'm very proud of Bitcoin Cash because of this. We need to use it, and we need places to use it. But the challenge with the store is and the merchant adoption is it's not very scalable. So you adopt 100 stores, you adopt 200 stores. Okay, but how many users do you need to be able to feed those stores so that they understand how to use Bitcoin Cash, they don't forget it, so they don't lose their wallet and their keys? Is it 10 users per shop that use it frequently, or 100 users? And what's frequently? Is it once a week, once a month? Like, there's quite a volume there, and it's quite challenging. So I see the key for mainstream adoption of Bitcoin Cash being digital, being the internet magical money of the world, and I think that's what my presentation was about. Fail hard, fail often, iterate, persevere. I think if anyone here says I know how it's going to happen, well, you're lying, because otherwise you would do it and it would be there. Right? And that's a great thing about the free market. If you look at most inventions, it was discovered by accident. Like, someone was trying to make this, but they made that, and it's like, hey, that works, and they sell it. Right? That's just how discovery works. And then you tell the story afterwards, like some lie that was always what I intended. So what I just invite everyone is the key to success is just get your ideas out there. See if there's traction. Don't just stay and build for perfection. Get it out. Get some market reaction to your particular idea or product. Iterate. make it better, scrap it, and think, hey, do you know what? This is just not getting the feedback that I require. And it will be like an idea that no one's thought of right now that is the success and is going to drive it. Or it's going to be emergent coding there. So let's see.
Yeah, well, we have the opportunity. All of us up here at Sakibi may have more than others, but not like a high development technique. But I think it's good for a room of developers to kind of hear feedback from people that want to see adoption further. We'll first kind of pick on the wallets in the ecosystem. We'll go back, start with Sakib. Sakib, if you could let us know what are your either your favorite or favorites BCH wallets, and some at least one new feature you'd like to see implemented within the next year.
My favorite wallet has changed, and it keeps continuing to change. Because I used to love Zapit, and then I switched, and then it was Paytaka for a bit, and then Selene, and now I came to BLISS with the Cashenize APK. So I've played with them all, and I think they all have really good, important, unique selling points, and I think they all have certain flaws, and no one wallet is going to meet the demand of every single user. But I think there isn't one that's an easy onboard for my target audience, personally. I think that there's a gap in just combining education with the wallet, and I would love to see some way that you can onboard easily, slickly, beautifully, without having too many steps, but ensuring that the new user understands what they have in their hand. And the second thing, which kind of excites me more than everything else, is one of the questions I get a lot as a new user when they get Bitcoin Cash is always the volatility question, and it's a major problem. And so I had this one user from Pakistan just contact me a month ago, and she'd received $20 of BCH value by doing 2 peer reviews, and she's super excited, and she was messaging me, and I don't want to be dealing with this type of, my job is get the journal going and all this kind of stuff, and I'm dealing with this user that's messaging me about Bitcoin Cash and how can I stabilize it, and I want it in US dollar value because I'm worried about the volatility. And I'm having these emails in the middle of the night saying, okay, well, how do I get this user in Pakistan to, and so I'm like, all right, so I'll just tell it to go to Binance, set up a Binance account, convert it to USDT, so it's off my back. So what I would love, and I'm really excited by this stablecoin situation. Right now, there's a bit of a barrier to entry to get a stablecoin, and I would love a wallet to be able to extremely easily. You've got Bitcoin Cash, you click a button, switches it over to a stability value, and within the app itself, and that would be so easy for me to onboard, because then I can just send the BCH and say, if you want to convert it, it's in the app, it's stable, don't have to worry about it.
So if you have one improvement this year, that
yeah,
would
I would
be
love to see that.
Developer, wallet builders to have that.
I want to be able to see a switch button and just convert from a cash token to a stability cash token within the wallet. I'd be so happy.
Awesome. Sal, same question to you. Favorite wallet, or maybe shout out a couple, and one feature that you would like to see adopted in.
I guess the trouble with wallets is that everybody here wants the best Bitcoin Cash wallet. Everybody at the Monero conference wants the best Monero wallet, but the reality is most people in crypto hold multiple coins. So you really need a wallet that's going to check all those boxes. And of course you want the wallet to do as much as possible. I mean, there's wallets nowadays that have encrypted messenger services built in, and the DEX just built right into the wallet. So you want to have as many features as possible, but the trick is to do that in a way that's friendly for the user. It has to have a good user experience. Right now, Edge Wallet is really on top of the game. They have this cutting edge feature, which it's common sense actually. We were talking about this on lunch. They have this new feature called duress mode, which just launched the other day. So if somebody puts a gun to your back and is like, give me your crypto, you can just type in a dummy PIN, and you get a dummy balance on your wallet, and you're like, look, I only have a cent. You can't take all my crypto. And frankly, that should be standard, and that really should be standard not only just on wallets but on ATMs and everything. So I'm really digging the Edge wallet right now. On my phone, I have 1,000 wallets downloaded. Paytaka, Bitcoin.com, the Edge wallet. I've got Cake wallet. I've got the Zano wallet. I mean, I've got wallets coming out of my ass. And it would be nice to sort of consolidate them, but again, I'm not the guy to do that. So.
But you would advise that would be one ask to the wallet developers for a specific Bitcoin Cash one to have a privacy thing where they can't.
So duress mode would be wonderful. I also think again, if you can fit as many features into that wallet as possible, that would be great. So, yeah.
Elliot, what about you? We were talking a lot about wallets over lunch.
Yeah.
Favorite?
So Bitcoin Cash is full of incredibly smart people. So I agree. Like I think I'm joining. I'm one of the most stupid people in the room. Very smart people, very geeky people as well. Like a lot of developers, and it shows in the wallets. To be honest. So when thinking about the next billion users, the next billion users, the vast majority of those users aren't highly smart, highly geeky people. Yeah, I mean, I'm the same as Saqib. I've been recommending lots of different wallets. Also Zapit. I think Zapit looks quite smooth. I've had some challenges there. I've been using Paytaka. I love Joe Ma and what he's doing. Supports cash tokens really well, and I think for me that's like if you're into tokens, cash token Paytaka wallet is the one that I would recommend. But when I'm showing new people just P2P payment and cash, I might get lambasted for this because I know it's not that popular right now, and it has definitely got worse than when I was using it back in 2021. But the Bitcoin.com wallet still has this snappiness and animation that for the average person that's not a geeky, not a very highly intelligent person, it's nice. It's got that sort of Apple sophistication. So right now, it really depends on what you're looking for. And there's a lot of great wallets out there, but my wish for the wallet developers would be the functionality is great, and for everyone that's already in Bitcoin Cash and everyone here, like that's really important, and we're going to keep on iterating and adding in new features as the chain improves. But the core experience, I would like to see lots of focus going in this to be super simple, to open it up and it's, send, receive, and it's really clear for anyone that has got no idea about, what's a QR code? Is that like my login password? Is this, what is this? Because of course for us, it's very simple. It's obvious we've got some experience, but for a new user, blah. So, and have this. When I'd like, so I'm someone that I'm quite into the Apple world, which I know isn't that popular in an open source community. But when you receive a coin, if you have like a little animation of BCH flipping and the sound, a little bit of dopamine releases in the head, or if I'm sending you a fiendish token or vice versa, that you even see the kind of token that you're receiving, I think that'd be really nice. Like these little things, it's so superfluous, but that experience, it needs to be a joy to use. If we want to get the next 8 billion people using Bitcoin Cash. So that's what I'd love to see some focus on over the next 12 months.
Yeah, as we were talking at lunch, my wife said, I don't want to, you guys would all speak in high level, but if they could just make it like Venmo, which just now just like it's got Bitcoin Cash in there too, which I thought was pretty cool. Bitcoin Cash got adopted by Venmo, but yeah, I think that just plays the UI, like user utility.
If I could just add one thing, it was something we were discussing at lunch, which I think is really important. Like I know we hate fiat and we hate banks, but they've invested like super amounts of money with the best programmers to develop like apps. So all of my banking apps over the last couple of years have all been updated to be truly enjoyable experiences. So I don't enjoy fiat. I don't like it. I much prefer Bitcoin Cash. But actually when I'm using the banking apps, they're amazing. So for all app developers out there, just go and try out some banking apps and think about how it's set up. Because the more that experience is like what people are already used to, like you're saving like all of the millions that they've invested to get those benefits. So.
And you're also competing. Bitcoin Cash wants to be a bank for the world, right? A decentralized banking system. You're competing with the fiat world. You're not competing with other cryptocurrencies. You're competing with the user experience of the banks. And honestly, every single app that I've got, there's a banking app in every country that I've worked in, is amazing.
Yeah.
I genuinely love checking my balance. It's very easy to send money. It's very easy to do bits and pieces, and I don't need to check. Like it's easy to do, and I find every crypto app I've ever used to be. I'm having to think about it quite a bit to figure it all out, and so it's quite easy to have a standard to get to. Just got to follow that and just make it the decentralized payment network. I think it'll be easy.
The challenge of that, though, is that a lot of that ease of use comes from the centralization. Like,
right.
like a lot, and obviously we're all doing the opposite of that. So the difficulty is in recreating that user experience in a decentralized way.
So we'll hop over to cash tokens, as we've been talking a lot about. So Keith, you kind of answered this, but if I'm going to take that out, we got an announcement yesterday of a new stable coin, and now we have a Mariah updating at the end of this month. Now that we've received stable coins, what token would you like to see next, or what would you like to see from the cash tokens ecosystem? I know your number one ask was
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I mean, I got asked this a little bit. Somebody privately asked me, should the journal have its own cash token, right? And I was like, we have no need for a cash token. All we need is Bitcoin Cash, send and receive. And so, from a personal perspective or from the project perspective, there's no reason for a cash token. But if I want to see cash tokens actually be adopted, sadly there is a number go up situation. And what I want to see is successful cash tokens projects. Because the only way that you're going to get adoption of enterprise and entrepreneurship and products on cash tokens is there if there are successful money-making products on it. And so I don't really care which cash token product is next, but I want to start seeing successful adoption of the product that then generates interest in the whole ecosystem, and then the whole thing goes. So whichever one wants to create it is great, but I don't mind.
Gotcha. Sal, any feedback for the token builders?
Yeah, so, well, two things there. Number one, stablecoins scare the shit out of me. I've always felt like a coin whose value is tied to the whims of a central banker is by definition not stable. It really needs to be tied to some market commodity. But I guess that's like a sort of separate discussion. Right now in the U.S., there's two bills before the parasites in Congress, the Genius Act and the Stable Act. And essentially these are backdoor attempts to sort of turn existing stable coins into CBDCs. Rather than having the Fed create their own stable coin, they're just going to take over Tether, and just everybody who's using Tether is now using a CBDC. And again, that's why I think we need privacy on a lot of these chains and a lot of these coins. But as far as tokens go, like I've always, as an agorist, I've always been promoting this idea of a Tokembrian explosion, which is not my term. I don't know if any of you guys know Gabriel Cardona, the old R&D guy from Bitcoin.com. He really clued me into this. And if we can tokenize securities and assets, imagine what a disruptive effect that would have on a lot of these regulators. Like, for example, FINRA. What is FINRA? FINRA is just a cartel of brokers. So they sort of monopolize the brokerage industry. And if we can tokenize securities and assets and then trade them in a permissionless fashion, we can make these parasites irrelevant. And I think that would be a great way for us to sort of punch back at the SEC and sort of make them irrelevant. And I'm not sure any chain has really done that in an efficient way yet. So that's sort of the biggest use case from an agorist perspective that I can come up with for tokens.
That would be insane.
Yeah.
Elliot, feedback for the token builders. What do you want to see this next year?
Yeah. So it's interesting because like the original question was cash tokens, and then we're talking about tokens, and I think this is one of the, like, if we could go back in time, should we have called it cash tokens? Maybe not, right? Because cash tokens enable so much more than tokens and meme coins. Just as like an anecdote, when we set up the r/cash tokens, like the Reddit subreddit, we didn't actually allow meme coins at the start because like no, we don't want it to just become like bullshit. We want it to be real projects and help real entrepreneurs. So what I'd like to see is like the whole cash token ecosystem like going wider. So I think absolutely what you're talking about there is like actual tokens that are representing something real. So stocks, commodities, it is very interesting. As I guess anyone watching, so that we pitched an idea of BLISS Master, of a ticket, using the cash token technology to take over Ticketmaster. The whole One Nation is a 23 billion industry and growing. So what I'd love to see is like more innovation, actually using that protocols to offer genuine utility that is not just for like having fun and Ponzi schemes and gambling, but actually interesting business concepts that are attractive to hundreds of millions or potentially billions of people in the world outside of crypto.
I just want to he's 100% right. I couldn't agree more. Like, we need tokens with real utility. And like there's an argument that meme coins and NFTs and stuff will help drive adoption. Maybe there's something to that, but as an agorist, I really want to see like the disruptive potential thrown in there. So, and there's so many different ways to apply this. I used to have a podcast called The Agora, and I used to have John McAfee on, and he would just rant about medical tokens. And he was convinced that these medical tokens were going to be like the key to solving the healthcare crisis. And there was a company called Doke Token, which I think they've since changed their name. It's like might be like MCT or something like that. But the idea is you give them access to your healthcare data. And in response, you get these DOKE tokens, and these tokens can be exchanged for real-world health services like telemedicine and shit like that. So I think that's another great use case. There's a million. We can probably do a whole panel just on ways to use tokens in a disruptive fashion. So be creative. Use your mind. You know, like tokens can represent anything. Look at the metaverse. Everything in the metaverse is a token. During the scamdemic, we were prohibited from meeting amongst ourselves by the political class, just like the colonial Americans were prohibited from gathering in taverns because they were afraid of, they were going to start some sort of rebellious movement. But in the metaverse, again, people think it's like all bullshit and stuff like that, but there's a real world use case here. People can get together in the metaverse, and everything in the metaverse is an NFT, or even like homeschooling. Imagine like a future where everybody, you can have like a world-class teacher, and students from all over the world can gather in one room virtually, to learn. Sotheby's had like a real store in Decentraland for a while. I know like that token hasn't been doing too well, so I'm not sure if that's still there. But Snoop Dogg had a house in Sandbox, and everybody, the real estate, I don't know if you guys remember, the real estate in the metaverse was like, it outpriced real world real estate for a while. Everyone wanted to live next door to Snoop. So like there's so many different ways to use tokens, and I think like the sky is really the limit. It's a key aspect of what we're doing here.
Yeah, if I could add to, I get your sentiment, me specifically as not being tied to a dollar, because we all know how that goes, but I also understand from a, like Saqib situation, that people just want stableness and simple in and out. But the tokenizing of assets, years ago, when I realized like that it didn't make any sense to really keep much cash around and get going somewhere that I'm not going to get printed away. Like I would even just like use my savings account as like the S&P 500, like just for extra cash, because that annually returned 10%. Could you stabilize to like the S&P as like an asset too? I'm sure that would have a better store, just I don't know. It's interesting.
You could stabilize to anything where there's data, and of course where there's. So I mean, you would have that data. Of course, you'd have an oracle, and there'd be some centralization of that point because someone's having to report that data. Different websites, different. But absolutely, you could create an using, as I understand, for like the protocols that are being used by liquidity. You could actually. It doesn't have to be a USD. It could be an ETF. It could be the top 100. You could literally stabilize, like, and bet on the economy that you're in. Which for me makes a lot of sense. But like a lot of things, it's about the liquidity too. So you need to make sure there's enough people that are actually interested in that, so there's liquidity with your positions.
You could absolutely have like a basket of commodities that are all tokenized and represent some index. But I think the other thing too here is like think about the capital inflows, right? Like so many people are limited right now to invest in stocks and whatnot. But like imagine. If you have like some company out there, instead of going public, you want to raise capital, and normally you would try to get listed. Instead of doing that, imagine you just tokenized your company, and now people can invest with minimal amounts, like minimal requirements, in a permissionless way. Imagine how much better the world would be if we didn't have those restrictions on capital. If capital could flow freely, and now people in underdeveloped countries can invest in, the next Apple or something like that. So. Tokens are absolutely huge. I think most people, even in crypto, don't understand the disruptive potential. Everything is going to be tokenized. If it can be tokenized, it will be tokenized. Art, houses, your car. I mean, we can tokenize a car right now. What's there? A couple hundred people here. We can have you could take a car, divide it into 200 tokens, and then we can have sort of like. Use it as like an Uber or something like that. We can all have returns on token. There's so many different ways to use this technology, and I think cash tokens really kind of puts us sort of ahead of the game here.
Very cool, very cool. A couple more questions, and then we'll go to kind of closing statements for what you guys like to say to the community, and then if any questions, we'll take those as well. But my next question is, what's the biggest competition at BCH, whether it's another cryptocurrency, governments? And is the future multi-coin or a one-coin future, or let's say a handful of coins? Saqib, we'll start with you. So, biggest competition at BCH?
I think firstly, I think that you have to accept it's going to be a multi-coin world, because we're already so disjointed and tribalistic. And once you're in a tribe as a human, it's very difficult. If you support a football club, you're not going to change your football club allegiance, right? And it's very similar, I think, with crypto. There's just some people that are so hardcore and wired into whatever they're doing. So if you don't accept a multi-coin world, I think you're living potentially in an illusion. There may become a coin that becomes so dominant that it really dismisses the others, but I don't think that's realistic. And so multi-coin is going to be the world that we're in, and Bitcoin Cash has to play its part within that. In terms of competition, if this is again how I chose Bitcoin Cash, if you look at the top 100 coins on CoinMarketCap, like I said, I think in terms of the ones that are pivoting to a peer-to-peer payment network, which is the original vision, there's a handful. Like, I think it's genuinely, and I don't know enough about these other coins, but I think it's Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Monero, and then a couple of handful of others. But the others are all completely unrelated to payment networks. So if you had to really focus on the competition being a payment network, it's just a handful. And I think they're all struggling to really get the adoption.
I agree with that. Sal, same question to you. Biggest competition right now to BCH, and what does the future look like in terms of cash coins?
So we're not competing with like BTC and ETH because they don't do anything. These are shit coins. We're competing with, yeah. We need to compete with coins that try to be a medium of exchange, right? Like P2P cash. And there's a handful of coins out there doing a pretty good job of it. I think we're one of them, if not leading the pack. Dash, Monero, Litecoin, I mean, you name it. There's a lot of coins out there that you can use in an efficient exchange, medium of exchange. But I think we really need that privacy aspect. I think that's really going to help propel us into like the future and sort of help us maintain that competitive edge. And what's the second part of the question?
The future, is it a one coin or multi-coin
Yeah,
future?
so I honestly, I know I'm going to be in the minority here, but I don't think it's a multi-coin future. And the reason why is because I'm a student of Mises. And in his book, The Theory of Money and Credit, Mises, who's a hell of a lot smarter than I am, says that a unified market will naturally narrow itself down until only one or two monetary commodities remain. And of course, the example he gives is gold and silver. And I think if you understand what his point is, it makes a lot of sense, right? He walks through the whole thing much better than I can. But yeah, I do think that in the end, like you'll have coins that do different things and different use cases and stuff like that, and that's always going to be there. But in terms of a monetary commodity, the idea is that there's going to be one money eventually. It might not be in our lifetimes, but eventually there will be one money, and that narrowing down will be based on what he and Menger call saleability, and there's different criteria in Menger's book, Origins of Money, that he lays out, like susceptibility to political and social censorship and transaction fees and stuff like that. Menger wrote this in like the 19th century, and I guess the maxis still haven't read it. So,
thank you for the Austrian.
Yeah.
Elliot, same question to you. BCH's biggest competition and the future coin market. How many coins are we looking to?
I'm glad I get to answer differently to you both, because Bitcoin Cash biggest competition is fiat. Right, that's it by a long way. And the great argument there with every single person I speak to is, with fiat, it's guaranteed to go down in value. Like that's 100%. Whereas with crypto, we don't know. It's already better, right? That's the pitch. And it makes people laugh, and it's like, yeah, you're right. Shit, I've got to get some of this. And the second part, sorry, was
Multi-coin.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So I'm with both of you, and it really depends on the time period. So over our lives, of course, it's multi-coin for sure. Even in 100 years, if you look at OSs, if you look at the payment processing systems today, we've got Visa, we've got MasterCard, we've got PayPal, Venmo, we've got all of these. And I'd imagine even in 1,000 years, that will still be the case. But, just like all of these things, you do have the big players. So, there'll be a few coins, there'll be Bitcoin Cash, there'll be something else in there. But I'm also like I wouldn't say it'd be 100%, but there will be a certain point in the future where like 99% of the transactions will be just done with this one coin, and that will be this galactic coin, Bitcoin
Right.
Cash, Emerald, Bitcoin. at some point in the future. But it will never be that there's not other coins being used. You will always have little, coins being used with little groups and whatever, and then these things, because humans are tribal. And the idea that, we like to belong, and this idea that we're all going to be like using the same thing, doing the same thing, I think is also flawed, but very much so, but very much aligned with the logic that, when one coin is being used everywhere, why would you use anything else? Like, what's the point?
So network effect.
Exactly, the network effect. So yeah, that's why exactly why I'm focused very much on one coin, is because if we want to have success against the biggest competitor, which is really important to remind everyone, it's not BTC. Like, really, fuck BTC. It's not important. It's irrelevant. Their market cap's nice. We want that, but nothing to do. But that's not the competition. The competition is fiat. And the only way we're going to beat fiat I can spend everywhere, every single place. You spend your dollars even in different countries that aren't anything to do with the US. It's crazy. We need that with Bitcoin Cash, or we need that with one coin. And so therefore it makes sense for me, and I think anyone that loves P2P Cash, is to focus on building the network of the coin that they believe has the most chance of success.
I mean, it's not even just like fiat, it's like the bank itself, right? Because fiat is trash. It's the biggest shitcoin in existence. I mean, what fart coin is worth more than the US dollar at this point? But it's the bank that sort of coerces the monopoly. That's the true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving on to the last question, and this was a conversation we had over the opening podcast. In terms of adoption, I think we agreed that if we could only get a really good crisis to move everyone onto crypto, I think people drive around their lives and live a pretty good life, and they're not too worried about that question of what money is or if am I being slowly inflated away. So my question is, I believe BCH is building the world a lifeboat. But how do we get them off the Titanic of fiat currency before a crisis, or is that what it's going to take? We'll start with Saqib on that question.
I've always said in private circles that it's going to take a crisis, because most people don't think about this high-level problem that crypto solves, which is the non-censorship and the decentralization. Most people don't care about that. They have much other bigger problems in their lives to worry about: getting paid, going to work, looking after the kids. And all of us with this high-level thinking that we want a decentralized system because the banking is controlling everything and the government, monopoly, is not what the vast majority of people think about. It's true, right? And so, and the only major use case left of crypto is that. The rest of it, of nice quick payments and instant and borderless, a lot of the fiat has managed to resolve with their various apps and cash apps and Venmos, and it's competitive. So the only real use case left of crypto is the fact that it's non-censored and decentralized. And the only time that people are going to value that is when they are threatened. And the only time they are threatened is when the government is controlling the lives to the point that it's affecting them. And that's going to take the crisis. And there's flashpoints. There's various global flashpoints where that's starting to happen. Perhaps in more frequency than it was 20 years ago, but you can start seeing that the government is cracking down on various parts in various industries, whether it's healthcare, whether it's war, various politics, protesting. There's enough people starting to feel that their freedoms are getting crushed. And that sentiment is growing across the world. And I think it's only when people link the two of feeling oppressed with the solution of having a system that is outside of that oppression. And I think it's going to have to get worse before people really embrace it.
Let's bring on the crisis. Sal, what do you think?
So yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. That's been my thesis in crypto since I got in 12, 13 years ago. The whole idea was that, the Federal Reserve is driving us into this, they brought us into this liquidity trap, and eventually we're going to end in this sort of inflationary spiral. And crypto was always a lifeboat. So yeah, I think that eventually when the Federal Reserve does finally shit the bed, people are going to have no choice but to move into crypto. But I also think that, as the state sort of, because the bank is caught in this trap where either they print money and we have hyperinflation, or they stop printing money and we have a terrible recession, they've sort of like a fish out of water. They've become they're sort of losing control. And as a response to that, they're sort of clamping down. They're becoming more and more oppressive every day. And I think as they become more and more oppressive, the need or the demand for P2P cash is going to grow and grow and grow and grow. until finally we reached what the Austrians called that universal demand, where everybody on Earth wanted gold, not because it was useful as money, but because it had this sort of decorative or ornamental purpose. And because everyone already wanted it, it was very easy to become a monetary commodity. In the same way, I think that everyone's going to want P2P cash because the state is going to be so incredibly oppressive. And once everyone wants it, it's going to be very easy at that point to use as a medium of exchange. The question, of course, is when, right? I mean, obviously, we're all very early, so we might be too early, but that's the way it goes. So,
Elliot, can we save humanity before they sink?
So first of all, to answer that, like someone's got to be early, right? So.
Yes, true, fair.
Yeah, so I'm increasingly of the belief that it may take a catastrophe to get that separation from money from state. But here's a thought experiment. Hands up here who has children. Okay, keep your hand up if your children always do exactly what you tell them to do. Okay, one hand from many. All human beings are born with a desire to be free and autonomous and have self-control. And if anyone with small children, you see this, it's ferocious. And it's not just a human thing. I have cats, I've had many animals, dogs, and all animals want this. You go into a zoo and there's a cage and the lion will walk around in circles and they go crazy. Freedom and liberty is a natural state of life, of all creatures, and it's in humans too. So, I agree, like most people are too busy with life. But something happens though, the average person, they go through many years of indoctrination in the education system, and the state education system, is completely controlled by the state and very much formulated in a way to accept the authority and to not ask too many questions. And then you get jobs, and you're busy, and you have children, you have growing responsibilities, and it's, for the average adult, like, they don't care. They just want a comfortable life, and they're more than happy to be a bird in a golden cage. But there's an important part missing here. What about the people that haven't gone through all of that processing? What about the youth? What about, the young teenagers who are still zesty and believe, screw the man, and they want to be free? And I think this is being missed in crypto. When I look at Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, it tends to be a bit older, and a lot of old OGs that were there. And I think that there needs to be more interaction with young people, with youths, which I also try to do, with 17, 18, people that are also starting university, because they're actually really, really thinking about this in Germany and how important this mission is. Because if you get people that actually really care about it, okay, right now they've got no money. They can't influence the price of Bitcoin Cash. But in a few years, those are going to be the ones that are changing everything. And they're also going to be the ones that end up voting and also maybe becoming politicians. They're going to be the ones that are actually using this. So I think the way that, a real way that we can actually create this without a collapse and do it in a much nicer way and a much friendlier way is to aim at the right sort of audience. So let's start watering those seeds.
Yeah, I find that very interesting. I heard a good saying. I got really into what's the term, like extending your life, even freezing my body. I was studying doing that, wanting to live a long time. And I forget who said it, but it rung a bell that the youth is so important, and living for long times actually may not be beneficial to society. It could be the ossification, because people don't change their minds; they just die. And that's actually made some sense in terms of civilization to bring new ideas. If people don't change their minds, they'll eventually die. And I know it sounds kind of strange to say, but time might just be on our friend. And if people are unwilling to change their minds, that they may not.
No, I'm just depressed.
But it's also a good point. For all of you that have children, which I'm guessing most of you do, make sure you're very open about your children, about why you're in Bitcoin Cash and what the reason is. Of course, in a way that's nice and filtered for their little brains, but in a way that they really get it. Screw the state, separate money from the state. That's all good. And Bitcoin Cash is the best coin and the best money in the world.
All right, so I wrote out a closing statement for myself, and then I'll let you gentlemen finish. And if anyone has questions, feel free to share. But again, I just wanted to send my gratitude for everyone for making this trip. I know we got people from how many different countries, Jeremy? 20 different countries. Taking this time for something that we're obviously very passionate about. But I just wanted to share a message the road to a world with building peer-to-peer electronic cash was never going to be easy. Taking down fiat currencies is probably one of the most monumental tasks that humanity's ever taken on. I do believe the hijacking of BTC, which a lot of us were really encouraged of when BTC was what it was. I think that was inevitable. I think walking in on the state, they weren't going to go down easy. I believe Bitcoin Cash and coins with this sentiment are the resistance that'll move humanity forward. The separation of money and state must take place to liberate humanity from financial censorship and remove us from the deceitful and evil process of inflating. And I believe BCH is building the most complete ecosystem on the foundation of sound money. And as I stand in a room full of people that are building the tools for more economic freedom, I just want to thank you guys and consider what I first talked about, really incorporating the why, whatever the why is. For me, the why, there's old Adam Kokesh used to always say, his why was because he just wanted to peacefully destroy the federal government, and I always share that with friends in close circles. So thank you guys so much for making BLISS possible, and I know I speak for Jeremy and Jonathan as well, but it's been a pleasure to meet all you guys. So Saqib, if you want to close out as well.
Yeah, no, I always close out by with a big thank you because, again, I haven't had a chance to really discuss the project, but the project that I'm doing is so disruptive to an industry that's got nothing related to cryptocurrency, but it needs cryptocurrency to prove that the model works. And for this to work, I've needed the Bitcoin Cash community to embrace the idea, and they have, and I'm extremely grateful for the support I've received and the changes that we're making, and I would hope that over the next year or two, continue to getting that support until I've managed to get the mass adoption within my own community to embrace the idea and use the currency itself. So it's a big thank you for the support, and I'm really hopeful, maybe next year, maybe the year after, I hope to be on the podium with a success story, not just a promise that this is possible, but this has been done. So this is kind of my vow that I hope that I'll be there.
Nice. Looking forward to it. Sal, closing message.
So I just want to say thank you to you and the organizers of this event, because it's events like this that bring the more passionate people in the community together. So you guys did an excellent job with this conference, and I hope this happens every year. So definitely kudos to you guys. My hat goes off to you guys. Also, you guys out there, it's you guys are the community for P2P Cash. So this is on you. This is your baby. So it's between you guys and the organizers. This is the community that's going to make it happen. So shout out to everybody who's here and who made the trip. I guess just in closing, I would just say, I guess the message that I really want to impart to you guys is the importance of privacy and how desperately Bitcoin Cash needs privacy to maintain that competitive edge. So if you are a developer out there, I think that is the chief problem that Bitcoin Cash needs to address in the future, and I hope you guys will look into it. Other than that, just keep pushing P2P Cash for the world, and don't lose sight of the goal. The gold standard in crypto is P2P Cash. It's not. There's a million use cases, but we have to maintain that laser focus on P2P Cash. So other than that, I just want to say thank you for everybody coming out, and thanks to the organizers.
Thank you. Elliot, closing statement?
Yeah. Thank you also to the organizers. It's been an amazing couple of days, really enjoying myself, and to everyone that made the effort and joined us for this most important mission. And yeah, it's super important that regardless of what we're doing, we do not forget what it is that we're building. Permissionless, decentralized money for the world, for everyone to be able to participate in the financial economy. And also to remember that the power and utility of money is exponentially linked to the size of the network. So keep building your products, keep getting the new users outside of Bitcoin Cash, keep growing that network so that we can realize this dream and everyone can enjoy this, the perfect money that we're building. Thank you. Have a great BLISS.
All right. Thank you to our panel. One more round of applause for them. And I've just got a couple of last little announcements before I let you go. Firstly, Ryan, taking a keen interest in cryogenics, clearly hearing the cold storage message, taking that to the next level. Good to see, innovation. Okay, we're going to have a little open house section, basically like we did yesterday, but everybody can just be free to mingle and hang out. At 4:30 p.m. is when dinner starts. We've only paid for the builder tickets for dinner, so that's builders only. But at 6:30 p.m. In this room, we'll be having a Bitcoin-related quiz for anybody who wants to come along. We'll just, a bit of a fun activity and just socializing as per usual. And at 8:30 p.m., the return of bachata, very popular from last night. So the people who are there, feel free to come back for that, and anybody else who has a dance partner, come along. Jonathan also wanted me to say that tomorrow night, in the sort of evening slot at 6 p.m., we're having a Street Fighter tournament on a 5th of Gaming. So if you can go on a 5thofgaming.com and sign up for that if you want to wreck some noobs, that's always good. Raffle tickets are still on sale. Final thank you to our sponsors, Mike Komransky, the Bitcoin Cash Podcast, Commercial Kitchen Stop, Ravish Off Ocean, BCH Bull, Mini Satoshi, Molecular, Turek, Steve Thurmond, and Bliss 2024. And Ryan, you got something to say? No. Okay, all right. Well, that'll do for day 2, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for day 3. Thank you, everyone.